60 clove garlic soup is the video I'm showing you today. Come check out this recipe from Busy Lady Life channel. You're going to need these ingredients to have this soup: 7 to 8 bulbs of garlic, potatoes, 3 large, 4 to 5 red, some small ones, a handful, mushrooms, baby Bella, about a cup, 3/4 cup of an onion, sweet or yellow, Parmesan cheese, salt, pepper, milk or cream, any sort of chicken base or bouillon, parsley, olive oil, and various different Italian seasoning. I used a block of Parmesan cheese and I shredded it. And the reason why you're using so many bulbs is that the cloves, to get to 60, there's roughly about 8 to 10 cloves in each bulb. You're going to need some olive oil as well. I use kosher salt. First thing you're going to start to do is get that cloves of garlic ready. Please excuse my appearance. I'm a traveling nurse. I come home from a week of being on travel, so I could look a little sloppy. But here's where I'm showing you how to count. So there's 8 to 10 cloves in each bulb. So when you're cutting the top off, you're just putting it on there, drizzling it with some olive oil. I usually put all my scraps and I use that later for chicken stock, bone broth, whatever you want to call it. So I'm taking the tops off of all of those bulbs and then putting them on a cookie sheet with some aluminum foil. And I will season that with some Italian seasonings, parsley, for some flavor. A little glass of wine doesn't help it. Doesn't hurt. So here's where you would take your olive oil, sprinkle it generously on your bulbs with the cut off part on top, and then sprinkle it with your seasoning. This is of choice, so if you want different seasonings, go ahead, experiment. And then you're going to wrap this up in the tin foil, aluminum foil, whichever way you want to name it nowadays. And then you're going to stick it in the oven at 400 degrees for about 45 minutes. These are just my homemade herbs. I grow various different herbs in my garden. Basil, rosemary, oregano, and I just kind of honestly dry them out in a cookie sheet on foil in my bay window and then mix them up in a blender, and then I call it my home blend of herbs. So now that that's done, wrapping it up. Here they look really good. I'm telling you, your whole house will smell so good as this is roasting in your oven. And everybody gets really started like, oh my, 60 cloves. When you see the end result, it'll make sense. So here I'm chopping up my onion. So you can use either a yellow or a sweet Vidalia onion. It's just something that's a little bit mild. I don't know if I'd use a red onion or even a white onion. I may, but I think it's going to make it a little more bitter. So you want 3/4 cup of this onion chopped. It doesn't have to be minced. It could be anyway, because you're really just going to be sauteing it down, and you're going to be using a blender or an immersion blender at the end. So, I wouldn't get specific on your type of chopping for your onion, because it's all going to be into a liquefied later on anyhow. But, depending on how fast you want it to cook and saute, chop it accordingly. Don't mind my mad knife skills that I don't have. But I was so excited to be able to come home after a week of being out of in another place, in another state, to just be able to cook and not have hotel food or fast food. Here's the potatoes I'm using. 60 calories for like 5 little guys. Just boil them, add a little kosher salt, put the potatoes in there. A handful, generous handful. I have long fingers, so I get more than the normal. But if you were to use a russet, I'd probably use, 3 large ones, maybe 4 mediums, the red ones. Oh, there I am, a little Cabernet, enjoying the weekend. Next is the mushrooms. So these are baby Bella. You can get the whole ones. I for convenience, I got the sliced ones. Those are rinsed, and I'm just chopping them up fine. Again, same thing. This is going to be sautéed, so it really, and it's going to be liquefied, so make it so it sautés better. Don't spend a lot of thought process of how exactly it has to be chopped. The potatoes and the mushrooms actually form more of a creaminess and earthiness to the soup, so think of it in that manner. I wouldn't spend too much time getting it perfect. Okay. So after I'm done chopping these, I add them into the onions that are being sautéed on my stovetop right now in a Dutch oven with some olive oil until they're nice and soft. I happened to come across this recipe on a TikTok. It just glanced in. I'm like, oh, that sounded really good. So I wanted to try it out myself, and I kind of tweaked it to my own taste and my own flavor and recipe. So I hope you enjoy this one. So here I am checking those potatoes that are boiling. And there's a little segue of my side dish that I will be pairing up with this. Yes, I'm trying to I did make a chicken cutlet sandwich. And I'll give you a recipe to that in another video. So see how it's just starting to get sautéed? You'll see later on as it gets darker and everything. And you're not putting a lot of olive oil in there. You're just sautéing these and letting all of the flavors marinate. Okay, my potatoes are boiling. I'm just going to check them for tenderness to see if they can go in there or not. Meanwhile, still, the garlic is roasted in that oven still. See, they're starting to get a nicer golden brown color. Onions are caramelizing in here really nicely. The mushrooms are getting very soft. And I'll be getting ready to put those potatoes in here. Just checking for tenderness, sticking a knife in there. And I usually try the smallest and the largest to see where we're at. I'm leaving the skins on these. You can take them off. I'm pretty, like I said, just really was kind of just trying to get a nice meal done quickly for my husband and my son and myself. So this is my go-to bouillon. I recommended chicken base or a chicken bouillon, but I use this. It's called Vegeta. It comes in a big bag. You can get it at many different stores, and I just put it in a mason jar, and I use it frequently. So it's about probably 4 tablespoons. Now, overall, I think I added 2 batches of this. Now, this is for a Dutch oven, so my Dutch oven was pretty much full, or your stock pot was pretty much full of this. So I did this batch, which was 2 tablespoons to 1 cup of hot water, mixed it up, added it in, added another full bowl, maybe 3/4 bowl of water, which would equate to 3/4 cup. And I did that 3 times with all of that. So overall, I would think that would be probably 6 tablespoons of bouillon and 4.5 cups of water is what I would use to offset that. So now it's getting even darker, and I'm going to add those potatoes in, skins and all. I don't care. It's going to be mushed up anyhow, so I'm fine. I tried this way. Maybe I could smush it down. Yeah, that didn't work. And then I go and get the potato masher. I'm like, okay, this has got to be an easier way here. It worked, but of course the skins get a little trapped in there, so you have to kind of knock them off a little bit. I couldn't use the immersion blender at this time because then I would just have a sticky mess of peels. So I want to get all of these mashed pretty good, so then I can add the liquid, and then of course try to use my immersion blender. That was the first thought. Now if I didn't have the skins on it, I'd probably be okay using my immersion blender. So if you want to make large potatoes and remove the skins, it may be easier if you use your immersion blender. So I'm just stirring it all up. Putting all those flavors together, letting them cook a little bit together. And now is the time to add the broth. So this was 2 tablespoons with 3/4 cup of water right here. Then I'll add another 3/4 cup of water in here just as it is with no broth. And then I repeated that step 3 times just to get the full stock pot. And then I taste as I go just to see where my flavors are. Here's 3/4 cup of water added to that. Mixing it up. So I continued that process. Wanted to make sure those potatoes were getting dissolved. So here's what it looks like with all of the broth in there and all of the water. Again, I'm tasting it. Now I didn't add any salt into this soup just because the bouillon has so much. The roasted garlic is done. Ta-da! It smelled fabulous. It looked great. And then the rewarding part will be to squeeze them out of there, which I didn't think really was that rewarding. I found it more messy. So I don't mean to give you multiple close-ups here of these. Oh, see, they're a little hot. So I couldn't even really show you. So now I let them cool down a little bit, and we squeeze them out of the bulbs. And like I said, this was actually the messy part. I didn't think it was as rewarding as the videos show of squeezing it out. These are smaller bulbs too, so I mean, if I got a big bulb of garlic, maybe I would have more fun. I just found more tediness of trying to keep the covering, I guess the skin, I don't know, it's almost like paper of it. But there is the end of it. So here is what 60 cloves looks like. It's almost like 4 tablespoons of roasted minced garlic. That's all I got out of it. And like I said, I used about 7 to 8 bulbs of a smaller or medium size garlic bulbs. So you're not having an overwhelming taste of garlic. So I add that in, stir it up really good, mix it into the soup, let it cook for about 5 to 10 minutes in here. And then I add in my heavy cream, or you can use milk of your choice. I wanted a little more richness, so I added about 3/4 cup of heavy cream, some pepper, no salt, just pepper. And pepper to your liking. I like a lot of pepper. Here I'm attempting to use my immersion blender. I really wasn't pleased with the process. It just didn't blend well for me. But maybe if I had those skins off it would. I'm not sure. I decided to take another route and just put it in the blender altogether. And I did it in batches. I think that I got the consistency that I wanted and the soup being pureed well for me. So here it is in my blender, my little NutriBullet. Started out low just to not have it splash everywhere if it kind of exploded off the top. You never know when you're blending things. And then moved it up to high to get it really mixed well. And then I'll place that back into my stock pot. And then I added a 3/4 or a half cup of parmesan to that soup. Here's what that soup looked like. It was super delicious. I garnished it with some parsley and paired it with my chicken cutlet sandwich.